Okay, this is my first video of 2014, and I want to talk a bit about a subject that I've touched on before, which is connected with feminism, but more specifically what I believe is the totalitarian nature of the argument many feminists take. Now, when I say totalitarian nature, I'm not talking about the push for equal rights. I'm not saying that's totalitarian for a second. Okay, I want to make that clear. Rather, I'm talking about the totalitarian approach many feminists take when they try to put forward their arguments. I think what prompted me to make this video was that there was a video about domestic violence. A woman had tweeted a photo of herself. She'd suffered domestic violence and helped lead to an arrest. Anyway, that was the context. But a girl on that forum, a woman, had posted a comment which irked me off a little bit. She said, "The only people who think that all men are rapists are men who always rape." So what she was insinuating is that there are not feminists who have that sort of mindset. Well, for a start, there are. Andrea Dworkin was on record as having basically said that. All men are rapists and that's all they are. And basically that's just wrong to suggest that there aren't radical feminists who genuinely believe that, who have tried to argue that all men are rapists. What she should have said was something like, not all feminists believe that. But to just say the only people who think that there are opinions out there like that are the rapists themselves is stupid. It's a stupid insinuation to make. But what I'm touching on here is the totalitarian position feminists seem to take. There's a trend that I've noticed when any man dares raise questions to feminists, more often than not, especially when there's a group of them on one thread, more often than not the response is to belittle that man, is to sort of dismiss him as a primitive caveman, to call him a loser, to insult his manhood, say he has a small dick basically, to say, oh, he probably lives with his parents, he's unemployed, all these sort of petty slurs basically. That's the sort of attitude that a lot of feminists have, and it is a totalitarian mindset. But one thing I think that makes me most frustrated with the feminist argument is this idea that if you don't agree with them in any way, then you are, by definition, sexist. That's their line of thinking. To me, that is totalitarian thinking. Agree with me 100% or you're a sexist. That's their outlook. Agree with me 100% or you're a sexist. That is a position a lot of feminists take. And it's something that really bugs me, because I know what my own views on matters of equality are. That is to say, I fully support equal rights for women, equal opportunities for women. I've always spoken out against women's rights abuses in many parts of the world where that does happen. And I've always defended women's rights in legitimate cases where the rights are under threat. But what I do not accept is a totalitarian position of feminism and the idea that you have to endorse it in order to believe in the principles of equality. Feminism is an ism. It's a political ideology. Some would say it's a humanitarian ideology. In some contexts it would be that, in the case of women's rights. But I strongly resent how this logic that you have to call yourself a feminist in order to believe in equality. Why can you not believe in equality, believe in women's rights, and yet question aspects of feminism? It's a totalitarian mindset. That's a bit like saying you cannot believe in If you don't agree with any aspect of socialism, then you're a greedy bastard who wants to exploit the poor. It's a bit like saying, if you don't believe in any aspect of capitalism, then you are a communist bastard who believes in mass death, that sort of thing. The feminist attitude is similar. If you don't entirely agree with feminism, then you must be a sexist pig. This is the attitude that many of them have. They're very, very narrow-minded in terms of accepting critique, accepting reasonable debate. Because more often than not, they resort to petty insults and just very infantile sort of put-downs. And the thing I think I find hardest to accept is the idea that you must be a sexist if you don't like certain aspects of feminism. I frankly despise certain aspects of feminism, but the idea that somehow means I dislike women or that I want to take away women's rights, it's how they correlate that, I think, is based on this idea that feminism is something other than what it is, which is an ideology, which is women focused, women centric campaigns under the guise of striving for equality. Now, sometimes feminism is about that, it really is, but I strongly believe that Western feminism, more often than not, has a divisive agenda. The point I'm trying to make it with this is that if you look at some of the positions that feminists take in terms of debates, it's quite obvious that there's totalitarian mindset involved. Now, by totalitarian, I'm not necessarily talking about Hitler, Stalin, Mao. I'm not saying feminists want to kill people, that sort of thing. But it is totalitarian to force someone else to accept your opinion. It is totalitarian to demonize someone if they don't entirely agree with your opinion. Now, I understand them being angry with guys who genuinely are sexist, and I have seen some very disgusting comments, genuinely sexist comments against feminists. But when feminists vilify anyone who remotely disagrees with them, and I've seen evidence of this. If you look at the Labour Party's website, if you look at any man who dares raise a question about their women-only conferences, I guarantee you Labour feminists will demonise that man as a Tory supporting sexist. Or they wouldn't take any of those questions seriously. They just would ignore that or come out with something ridiculous like, oh, well, you asked this question, you must be against women's rights if you oppose a gender-specific conference. Then you're somehow against women's rights. It's absurd. And it is one thing that's stopping me from supporting the Labour Party, by the way, this feminist agenda that they blatantly have. So yeah, I find it all quite nauseating. And I really wish feminists would comprehend how they come across. Why is it that there are a lot of men out there who do genuinely support women's rights, but don't call themselves feminists? Ask yourself that question. Maybe it's because men actually do support some of the things that feminists are trying to achieve. They just don't like the sort of language that is constantly used, the constant negativity. Now, I don't believe that feminists hate men. I don't believe that all feminists hate men, because then I'd be just as guilty as doing what a lot of them do. I can't say they vilify men if I vilify them. So I don't believe feminists hate men. But I do believe many feminists are stuck in this very totalitarian approach, and it really pisses me off, because you cannot have a fair debate if one side is unfairly vilified without being allowed to express their opinion, in the sense that they're just silenced, dismissed, shouted down. And there are certainly bullying overtones to the way that feminists go about shouting people down. I mean, I guarantee you, if a man was to have got up in that Labour conference and said, Mr. Miliband, what are you going to do to ensure, say, fathers' rights? I guarantee you he would have been jeered down by Labour feminists who are opposed to men's rights. They actually actively oppose men's rights. So that's what I'm getting at. I believe that there's definite totalitarianism to be found within the position that many feminists take. And I will not be silenced on my opinions about anything. I believe in women's rights, and I'm not against all feminism. But this sort of totalitarian outlook, agree with me or you're a sexist, that I find hard to stomach.